Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Sunshine Coast Regional District Finance Committee for Thursday, October 19th, 2023. It's 2:01, and I'd like to call this meeting to order and acknowledge that the Sunshine Coast Regional District is located on the territories of the Sechelt and Squamish Nations. We do have an agenda in front of us today. Hopefully, we can get through it fairly quickly. But before that, I need a motion to appoint Director McMahon the Vice Chair for the purposes of this meeting, please. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. With that, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented, please? Moved, seconded, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And a motion to receive all reports. Moved, seconded, all those in favor? Thank you. So with all that out of the way, we will move on to Annex A, which is the MNP LLP 2023 Audit Service Plan. And we'll turn this over to Manager Wing for an introduction.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, this is the audit service plan for the 2023 financial audit. This is a document that lays out the audit process, the team, audit team, materiality, any items for any new items that are coming up. So in this case, we have some new standards that are going to be adopted for 2023, most notably asset retirement obligations. So that will be a change to our financial statements this year. The timeline for the audit, they come in and we'll do an interim audit in late November. And at that time, they'll be assessing the details of what they're going to plan and how they're going to conduct the year-end audit. They'll finalize materiality and any other questions they have there. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you very much. Directors, any questions for Manager Wing? Director Stamford.
Thank you, Chair. On page 8 of the package, there's an item underneath risk assessment, and a significant risk area has been identified as management override of internal controls. I don't know if this comes up every year, but I just wondered if there's consideration of how to mitigate this.
Thank you, through the Chair. Yes, that does come up every year. That is pretty standard. So that's just, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding this report? I don't see any hands up. Thank you for that. And with that, we will move on to Annex B, which is Sunshine Coast Regional District Q3 Corporate Financial Variance Report. And again, back to Manager Wing.
Thank you, Chair.
My apologies, I'm sorry. There was a recommendation in Annex A that I did forget to get a motion on. Director Lee, was that an offer to make the motion?
Yes.
All right, thank you for that. And I've got a seconder for that. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. This is voting all directors. All those in favor? That's carried. Now we'll move on to Annex B. Thank you for that. And go ahead.
Thank you. So this is the standard third quarter variance report that's presented. This is a high-level corporate variance report. It's intended to identify any areas of concern with respect to deficits. The standard caveat that comes with this report is that it is prepared in a very short timeline. This particular report, we had 5 business days to cut off and prepare the report after the quarter end. So there are a number of accruals and estimates that go into this, and invariably we don't always capture everything. So I just always like to mention that at the outset. Moving through the report, I'll just highlight a few areas here. With respect to user fee revenues, this would be on page 22. The community recreation facilities is showing an unfavorable variance for user fees of $100,000. That is not unexpected. There's obviously seasonality with that service with respect to the arena operations. So we do expect that to mitigate through to year end with both arenas operating at this time. The community parks variance, that we do not expect to mitigate. That was previously identified in Q2 as there's a budget adjustment that's required there. And so that will be addressed through the 2024 budget process. As far as operating expenses, we are continuing to see inflationary pressures. Base budget operating expenses are at 94% of budget. That's compared to second quarter where they were 92% of budget. And those are trending higher than previous years as well. So we're continuing to see those pressures, most notably in things like contracted services, materials and supplies, repairs and maintenance. We're seeing that throughout the organization. Overall, we are showing an overall surplus of $2.8 million at Q3. That's equivalent to 5% of our annual revenue. So slightly lower than what we were showing at Q2. So again, that's reflective of the ongoing pressures that we're seeing. Moving to page 24, I'll just highlight a few of the higher variances that we're seeing. So previously identified in Q2 was Gibson's and Roberts Creek Fire Departments. We're not seeing those deficits have increased slightly, but are for the most part holding. Generally, those are related to those higher line items that I noted before. So contracted services, materials and supplies, repairs and maintenance. Fuel to another extent. Sunshine Coast Emergency Planning, that deficit of $54,000, there will be a pending recovery that will offset a portion of that, approximately $8,000 related to the Clahome wildfire. So we'll see that come in, but what we're seeing there is just higher salaries and wages, and we think that's an allocation between services. So there has been more time allocated to this service than was budgeted. Staff time is split between various services. So that's what we're seeing there. Obviously, the one area of significant concern is community parks. Subsequent to this report being prepared, we identified approximately $24,000 accrual for a grant that was missed related to the Cooper's Green project. So that deficit of $188,000 is more along the lines of $160,000. There's a combination of things causing that variance. We noted the user fees earlier. There are some other base budget items in the expense side that will need to be adjusted. And then again, seeing the inflationary pressure in those line items that I've mentioned before. And yeah, it's definitely an area of concern. GM Gagnon is here as well to answer any questions from that. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction. Directors, Director McMahon, I see your hand first.
Yes, I may have asked this before, but I'll ask it again because I've clearly not remembered. So what are the fees in community parks, and does that include community halls?
GM Kenyon.
Thank you for the question through the chair. The fees in community parks are currently in the budget related to Catherine Lake campground fees, which we no longer collect, which is what's causing the variance. And we need to make some base budget adjustments. We should have done that last year. It was just an administrative oversight. It also includes the community halls and any special events that have a fee associated with that in our parks. As the board knows, we don't charge for the use of our sports fields, so there is no cost for those. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Bax.
Yeah, I wanted to get some information on the we have a surplus within our function 310 transit. And so at what point, I understand that we have some negative, unfavorable variances, and those have to be made up within the budget. But what happens with the favorable variances, and at what point is it become available to be used within the function again for new projects or things like that?
I think if you're speaking transit specifically, most of that is probably related to the COVID grant that transit received, but I'll turn it over to staff for clarification.
There certainly is, sorry, thank you for the question, and through the chair, there is funding from the COVID grant that is budgeted, that is currently held in reserves, so that is budgeted as a transfer from reserves. This surplus, you'll note that user fees in this service are significantly higher than budgeted, so that is a contributing factor to the surplus. Through the budget process at year end, we provide a report, a year-end surplus deficit report, and we will recommend, generally what happens is in the financial sustainability policy, surpluses are automatically transferred to reserves for use then towards special projects in the future. So that surplus deficit report will summarize all the surpluses and deficits, and will include a recommendation to transfer those surpluses to reserves, and from there they can be utilized for projects or one-time funding options going forward.
That's good.
It is good. It's good news.
That's good news. Thank you very much.
Director Lee. Sorry, Director Lee, I'm just going to cut you off. GM Gagnon.
Sorry, Chair. Thank you very much for allowing me to just add a follow-up to that. If the board will remember last year when we came forward with the draft annual operating report, we did use an account for money from our reserves to directly offset the tax increase that's related to our annual operating increases for the agreement that we have with BC Transit. So we do draw from that reserve on a regular basis. In the 2.5 years I've been here, we've drawn from that reserve both years to offset the tax increase. So we do use that reserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Lee.
I probably missed it, but I noticed on page 28, which is 110, General Government, we have a 2.2 million difference in revenue actual to budget. I was wondering what that, it's called a government transfer.
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, that funding is the Growing Communities Fund monies that were advanced from the provincial government.
That was my guess. I just wanted to verify I had it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lee. Last chance, directors. Any other questions? If not, thank you very much. And we will move on to Annex C, page 129 in the agenda package, which is status of reserves and holding funds as of August 31st, 2023. The report's here just for information, but Manager Wing, I don't know if you wanted to highlight anything out of the report.
Yes, thank you. I would just like to highlight there's a appendix attachment A and B, so this would be page 132 and 133. You'll note that the investment landfill closure reserve is showing as being oversubscribed by 843,000, while the investment in reserves fund is showing as being undersubscribed. That is related to, it's just a administrative error, the allocation of a particular investment. So there's no, I just wanted to highlight that those two offset each other, and we will correct that going forward. So what that is just the investment was taken out. It's just been misappropriated in the spreadsheets to the wrong fund. So.
Thank you. Not that we want to hear the term misappropriated, but at least it's just in spreadsheets. So, directors, any other questions on, or comments on the report in front of us? I see Director McMahon.
Yes, we seem to have a large building inspection operating reserve, probably because we're doing a lot of building inspection and collecting a lot of fees. But do we have a policy about how much money we keep in that operating reserve?
Thank you for the question through the chair. We do not have a policy on how much money we keep in that reserve. The one thing with building inspection is the fees are tied to the value of construction. So as the value of construction has increased over the years, the fees increase along with it. And we're seeing the positive results of that. This is it's a good news because, you know, if I remember going back 10, 12 years, this service had no reserves and we were having to increase taxation to fund it. So it's good that we have those if there ever were a downturn, and they're certainly available to mitigate you know, any taxation if there were, but I think we have reduced taxation to zero in this service. So yeah.
Thank you. I guess to follow on to that, there is, I guess, the opportunity to set negative taxation through the budget process for this service as well, I believe. Like it can be returned through the budget process. I'm seeing a head nod.
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you. Director Bax.
Yeah, talking about this type of accounting, is there a formula that we use to set a minimum and or maximum amount of reserves within a function that would trigger a return to the taxpayers? Except like if we were looking at if we had a value that we're using for one function and our reserves reach a certain percentage of that, we don't have any formula to trigger any kind of return to taxpayer, do we? It's just kind of a case-by-case business? Okay.
I believe that's something that's come up a couple of years in a row as conversation that is something that needs to be worked on, determining what maximum values of reserves are appropriate and how things progress out of that. But yeah, that hasn't come yet. So Director McMahon?
I just got all excited by the idea of negative taxation. Can we do some of that, please? That would be so cool. Even if it was a little bit, so that we could say that we negative taxed.
Save it for an election.
Sorry, Manager Wing, go ahead.
Thank you. I will say, based on my recollection, when we have done it, it has been very minimal amounts. You know, we're talking a few $1,000s that are being returned. So I would caution that we would need to look into that. And we certainly have been questioned on it by the province when submitting the tax requisition. So I think it would be prudent to clarify and make sure we have, you know, the right guidance for that going forward. Yeah.
Thank you. Directors, any other questions before we move on? Director Lee?
Sorry, Chair, I wasn't quite ready. Thank you. On page 136, I was trying to figure out what this summary of gas tax community works funding says. The last line
Director
is,
Lee? You're on to the next annex already.
oh, I'm ahead of myself.
You're ahead of, well,
I
you're
did
ahead of
that
me,
again.
more importantly.
Okay.
But
My
I don't
regrets.
see any other hands up, so we're going to move on to Annex D, which is the Canada Community Building Fund, Community Works Fund update. And Manager Wing, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to highlight on this one before I take Director Lee's question. Perfect. Director Lee, I apologize. Now it's your turn.
Not quite sure how I got all mixed up here. My left hand didn't follow the right hand. I'm on page 136. It says uncommitted funds available for 2022 on the N column, which kind of confuses me.
think that's supposed to say
Thank you.
2023.
Yes, that is a typo.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Director McMahon?
Another question I may have asked before, but do we expect to know what the new agreement is going to be between UBCM and the federal government on gas tax spending?
Thank you for the question through the chair. We don't have any information on that at this time. The last I heard is that we're still in discussions and negotiating a new agreement.
Yeah, I was is there any hope of this coming down before the end of our budget cycle so that it might inform our deliberations?
I do not know.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot like that, for sure. Director Lee, I thought I'd seen your hand. You're good? Good questions. Okay, thank you. Any other questions from directors? It's all fairly straightforward. It's a regular report for us. You know, looking at it from the District of Sechelt, you guys got to spend your gas tax money.
We're trying.
You got to stop hoarding it. Yes, Area F is doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, you're gonna have to teach us how to.
So with that, we have no communications, new business, or in-camera sessions, so I look for a motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded, all those in favor? That's carried, thank you. Any questions from the gallery or online? Go ahead, you'll have to come up and use a microphone at the table. You gotta push the button on the microphone, just so folks online can hear you.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to talk with you today. My name's Lyle Wharton. I'm a longtime resident of Truman Road out in Square Bay service area. And I'm here on behalf of a group of the residents of Square Bay to to pose a question or a request that's germane to the budget variance reports and the kind of reporting we get on financials. And that question is, will the SCRHD reinstate the report called variances by account rather than the consolidation in the two lines that we receive for our operating expenses? We've received this report in the past. And it's also provided to many other regional districts, which is a detailed breakout of accounts so we can understand or better understand the various elements of the expenses. If I may, I will only take 2 minutes. I know you've had a real busy day, so just a little background. Many of you may be aware that there's been a very major concern about the Square Bay wastewater plant, both on the part of the residents and the regional district. Our user fees have increased from $330 to close to $1,300 over the last 5 years since our new plant was introduced. I would be really happy to tell you that those increased fees have gone to correcting significant problems we have with our collection system, but that simply isn't the case. Actually, in the past 2 years, very little has been done to correct the problems that we've been told are impacting our user fees and the cost of operating our plant. And if you look at your current budget variance reports for Square Bay, you'll find that zero has been spent this year to date. So as we've been told that this is really driving the high costs of our service, and that the problems with infiltration for stormwater in our collection system is degrading our plant equipment and is also exposing us to very severe penalties for noncompliance because we've had to dump report out into the bay beyond the requirements. So it wouldn't be surprising to know that a bunch of us have spent countless hours trying to track why we've come to this point. And so we've done analyzed reports going back to 2019, finance reports, budgets, management reports, and we've learned a lot. We've really been helped by our director, Gavius, who spent considerable time working along with us to understand our issues, and also we've we're grateful for the attendance of Leonard Lee in some of our meetings. So we were getting really good attention, but I think we need more information. And I reiterate that question is that can we get a reinstatement of more detailed financial reports so we can have some transparency, understand the issues more clearly? It's not the end-all be-all, but it's a good first step for us. And as I say, it's been done in the past, and we will not, and it's been provided to in other regional districts as well. So thank you again, and I recognize that this is a request/question, and that, but we do ask for consideration of the board and the senior management team to see if we can get more transparency, more information, reduce our questions to staff and the board, and be able to have a much better understanding for our constituents. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your question and for taking the time to come out. We are adjourned already, so we're not able to make any recommendations or anything like that at this time. I think it's something that we're going to have to continue to work with you on offline or follow up on. I don't know that you're going to get an answer today that you're looking for. I did see the corporate officers turned her camera on, so I don't know if you wanted to say anything or we're just preparing yourself in case you did, or...
Well, thank you, Chair. So I just want to offer that I can't comment on whether we're going to be reinstating the variances by account in the utility billing today. But what I can offer is that if there is information that you're looking for, we would be happy to assist if you submit an information request through to the SCRHD. So if there's something in particular in the financial statements that is not clear, and it's what is on our website, if you're looking for more detail, if you let us know what that is, we can make an effort to get that information to you through FOI.
Sherry, thank you. And really, that wasn't really the basis of our request. We're looking for a report that was being provided before. And I recognize that there's some things that perhaps would fall into FOI, but I don't believe that having this being provided to all service areas is necessarily under the FOI. Okay. And we're not asking just for us.
And can I add to that?
Sorry, as I mentioned, we are adjourned. Happy to follow up offline with it or continue to work with you guys on it. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
And I don't see any other hands up, so thank you, everybody, and we'll see you at the next one.